We back.
yeah, we back. We back. Episode 2 should have been 3.
I feel like it's just been a lag.
Yeah, but hey, good things come to those who wait. So thank y'all for tuning in. Another episode of Yes, We're Articulate.
Yeah.
See, we wearing some merchandise now.
I was gonna say lots has happened since we last got together. So we kind of officially launched the apparel.
Yeah. So
thank you to everybody who has supported so far.
Yeah, I think we sold some T-shirts and some hoodies. When I edit this, we'll have the website down at the bottom that you can go and purchase some merchandise. Hey, just support us. You know,
Yeah.
we just 2 young, black, intelligent entrepreneurs trying to make it happen.
Make our way.
So,
tell your friends.
Yep.
Go to our website, yeswe'rearticulate.myshopify.com. And at some point we'll have like more stock, but for now we got hoodies and t-shirts in children's and adult sizes. So
men and women.
if you're looking for some swag, then go check us out.
Yep, and shout out to Marcus Morgan from McFly Designs, who actually helped us with the t-shirts. Great guy, close friend of mine. Really, always trying to other black businesses supporting other black businesses. That's what it's all about, black entrepreneurship. So shout out to him. Way to look out for us. Go out, support him, and support us. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right.
So where do you want to kick off this month? I mean, there's a lot that's been going on.
There's a lot been going on.
Let's start on a positive note.
Yeah.
Robert
Smith, man. Just
money.
Did the commencement speech at Morehouse College and basically said, I'm wiping out all the student loan debt of the whole graduating class. And he wants this to be something that the school and alumni and classes moving forward, that somebody steps forward and actually helps with. Man, that's big time.
I think I would have fainted. Right? Like,
man, I'm still paying off my student loans.
I don't know if they'll ever get paid off.
Yeah. That's big
good
time.
Good for him. I mean, like, I think that's what it's all about, right? Like, in the black community, we preach fighting, like, wealth building. And I think this was an example of why it's not wealth building for the sake of wealth building. It's so that you can do things like this, right? Because what we know is, even though we are graduating from college, a lot of us are graduating with debt, and that means we're not starting where our counterparts are starting.
Yeah.
And so having that off your plate and being able to go to your job and not have to worry about paying off this debt right out of college, that's huge, right? Like, that puts you at such an advantage. So, I mean, I think this is just an example of why we need to continue to push wealth building so that we can do things like that.
It's simply amazing, and what I love about it is that it's at an HBCU.
Yep.
He couldn't have had better timing, because we all know the HBCUs are struggling financially. So to give them this free publicity is really big. And you said before, we teach wealth building. I think there's a lack of teaching of financial responsibility and how to build wealth and so forth. Going all the way back to like elementary school, we don't learn about that stuff. We don't learn how to save money. We don't
invest.
Or invest. So hopefully this will bring some much needed focus on that. But also it shows. I mean, I think it equaled up to like $40 million.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. That's the amount of debt that a graduating class. I think we had like 300 and some people. That's like my high school class was around 300 people. So for 300 people to have over $40 million,
that's crazy.
College costs too much. It really does.
It does. I mean, and I feel like that highlights just a bigger issue. That's like predatory.
Yeah, it really
like
is.
That in order to this idea of like the American dream, which we know is like not actually, like, this is to think that kids are taking out thousands and thousands of dollars in loans to be able to like have this experience. Like, that is crazy. And unfortunately, Morehouse is an example of thousands of universities where that is the case, where kids are graduating and they just can't get a leg up because they got to worry about 6 months later, loan officers calling them and being like, pay me my money.
And they ain't got no mom and dad that can like pull strings and like get them in.
Exactly.
So big ups to Robert Smith, man. That's awesome, man. Just to give these kids, and I want to make it known, it's not giving them a leg up. It's actually putting them on even playing field with most of their counterparts, because so often we get out of college and we got all this debt, and then you're getting your first job, you don't make a lot of money, and you still got this debt, and that college loan debt is the one debt that you can't get rid of. You can't get rid of it. You can file bankruptcy, all that stuff, but that's gonna stay with you. It's gonna Sally Mae and they gonna get their money. So definitely that's what it's all about. And
it's funny because I don't remember the article, so I can't cite it, but I was reading something that basically said in the next like 30 to 40 years, wealth in the Black community is going to be zero, because traditionally, like, we have been taught that like going to college is the way that, like, through education is going to be the way that we kind of attain, you know, success and wealth. But what's happening, because students are going to college and having to take out loans, when we're graduating, we're not able to invest, or we're not making enough money to save or to be able to buy a house. And when you look at, you know, investing in a house, that is how people traditionally have built wealth. And so it's just interesting to think, like, I think it's a shift also in thinking about, is college the only way to be financially successful? Which we have been told as Black people, you go to college, you get your degree, you get the house, but what we know is there are so many barriers preventing us from, you know, being as successful as our counterparts, white people, and so that's not the case. So I'm glad that, I don't know, we're having more conversation about entrepreneurship, trade schools, like other stuff outside of the traditional 4-year college experience. Not saying that's not important, because what we do know is we still have to be educated, but at the same time, that's not the only way for us to be successful.
And you know, I have a son that's, you know, a couple years out from going to college, and it's, you know, I commend my parents on, it was never an option if I wasn't going to go to college. I always knew that I was going to go to college. It was something I just knew I was going to do. But having those conversations now, I've seen too often where people just go to college, don't have a plan. In college,
it's a $100,000 experience.
College costs too much for you not to go in with a plan. So I tell people now, if you're not sure about going to college, if you didn't do well in high school and know that you're going to struggle academically, look for other options. There's nothing wrong with developing a trade. There's nothing wrong with being, you know, a mechanic or an electrician or a plumber. You learn that trade and you become your own business. You become an entrepreneur relatively quickly. And those professions are in need. You're always going to need somebody to come in and do that type of work, and they make good money. So don't knock that. Don't knock those jobs. So I tell anybody now, college is not the only option. You have many options. Have a plan in place. Don't go to school and say, man, I'll find out what my major's going to be.
And then senior year comes and it's like you're walking across stage and you have, like, that would have been a kind of a waste of an experience.
And how often do we see that people have a degree, and then that degree, like, what are you doing? Well, I majored in this, but I'm now doing this. And a part of that is you really didn't have a plan and didn't really understand what you wanted to do. And that's just, to me, money thrown away. So again, not knocking the college education. I have one, she has one. It's a great thing to have. But you also need to have a plan, because that college debt, man, it can be a bear on your back, man, and I don't wish that upon anybody. I went to an in-state school, a state institution, relatively cheap back then. I'm still paying down my loans now, but, you know, for people that go to particularly a private institution, you didn't get a lot of scholarships, man, it can be a whole lot. It can be a whole lot on you.
And I would say I was fortunate enough to go to, you know, a university that gave me a full scholarship, because my mom also said, you're going to college, but you better be able to pay for it, because what we got, you know? So, I mean, I also wanted to point out, you said something and I forgot. It was about, I think thinking about, like, why we go through college, like, especially as people of color, we go through and we're not set up, you know, senior year. I mean, the power of networks too, right? Like, I was just reading that, like, 3 more families came forward in the whole, like, Ivy League college scheme. But I just feel like that shows the power of, like, who you know, connecting with people, which brings me to my next point of, since we're talking about HBCUs, Beyonce homecoming. Because and this can go in several different directions. I mean, the creativity, the, like, boldness, the blackness, like just the old, and her paying homage to HBCU. And again, we didn't go to HBCUs, but we know people who did. And one thing that I appreciate aside from like the art of homecoming was just how she highlights the cultural assets of young black talent and professionals coming out of HBCUs.
Yeah.
I mean, the dancing, the musicality, the creativity. So for anyone who like doubts that we are creative and talented and out there, go watch Homecoming. Because, she knew the story she wanted to tell, and she identified universities to go to, and was very intentional about bringing talented people into this production.
Yeah.
And so I'm still I'm still listening to the whole album. It's actually my gym workout because, it's just the experience.
Yeah. It's what I loved about it is that, again, it put a focus back on HBCUs.
Yeah.
And as somebody who didn't go to one, for so long, I think there's a stigma within the black community, I was going to say right or wrong, but it's a wrong stigma,
yeah.
And so that you get less of an education
right.
when you go to a predominantly black institution,
right.
HBCU. And I'm not afraid to say that that's how I kind of looked upon it when I was thinking about
sure.
where I wanted to go.
But that's also what we're told.
Yeah, you think, when employers look at that school versus this school, they're going to say, I'm going to go with that person because I think they got a better education. And that's probably wrong, because I know plenty of people that went to a HBCU and have great jobs, right. Great careers, right. Leaders, and so forth. So it changed I won't say it changed. I think once I got out of college and really talked and interacted with other people that went to HBCUs, I felt like that I didn't give those HBCUs a fair shot.
Right.
And if I know now with my 3 kids, particularly my younger 2, it's going to be an option for them.
Absolutely.
I definitely want them to explore. We'll go visit because I think it's an experience that you can't replicate if you go to a predominantly white institution. You can't do it.
Not even a little.
No,
not
you
even
can't,
a
you can't
little
get
bit.
it. I don't care how diverse
yeah.
you say your university is. That experience that you get when you go to an HBCU it just can't be replicated.
Yeah.
And I unfortunately missed out on that. My father went to an HBCU.
Where did he go?
He went to St. Aug.
Oh,
So, he still goes back to homecoming.
Yeah.
It's that type of thing, going back to homecoming, having that, those people that pledged and so forth.
Yeah.
Like, for those black people that go to predominantly white institutions, I don't see that type of what the word I'm
camaraderie,
camaraderie,
yeah.
and just love and
yeah.
dedication to the institution after they leave.
Yeah.
I love VCU, but I don't love VCU like my dad loves
yeah.
St. Aug.
To be honest, I'm coming up on I'm aging myself, kind of. But on my 5th year from the University of Richmond.
Yeah, I'm celebrating 15.
So I'm coming up on my 5th year, and I'm like, mind you, we live in Richmond.
Yeah.
I'm down the street from campus, and I'm like, I don't even know if I'm gonna go back.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, are other black students gonna be there? I mean, I am grateful for the University of Richmond. It was a top-notch education. The resources unmatched, the things I had access to. And I will say the tribe that I did create, and other students of color, black students created, was great. But at the same time, do I want to go back and be on campus recognizing that it wasn't that welcoming to students of color? Not so much. Right. So I think that's a good point. And again, when I look at a lot of my friends who have gone to HBCUs, it just seems like 4, 5, maybe 6, because some people take a little longer to graduate. Just being in a place where most people look like you, because the reality is you graduate and the world don't look like you. And so I think there is something so precious and necessary about being in that space, during such formative years of your life.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about, you said, being in that space where you feel comfortable, people look like you, and you get used to it. And I think for so long we've been to a place where, you don't want to go to HBCU because that's not how the world looks.
Well, how many times have you heard that?
But you go to the HBCU, and I think the way my mindset is now is I was going to a room and if it don't look like me, and like, well, what can I do to change it?
Right.
Why doesn't it look like more like me? It should look more like me.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to go to a predominantly white institution and feel like it doesn't look like me. That's the way the world is. No, that's not how it should be. Like so, you know, I think all of the barriers that were put up and all the negative things that were said about HBCUs when I was coming up, and the reasons why I didn't choose the HBCU, I was really naive.
What were the top 3 reasons? What did people say? Because they probably said the same thing.
Off the top of my head, top 3 things. You're not gonna get a great education.
Check. That's not what the world looked like.
Not what the world looked like. And you're not gonna be able to get it. Employers don't look at them the same way they look at other universities. Those are like the top 3. But you know, looking back, you know, I loved school days. You know, I love the different world. Like those type of things. When I saw that, I was like, man, that's how college is gonna be.
I just knew I was with
I just knew I was with legs. I knew that I would be stepping this, that, and the other. And as I got older, and you know, you learn more, you kind of see more of the world. You know, like I said, those things was fed to me, and unfortunately, I let that hinder my understanding of what a true HBCU is. So to all my people that went to a HBCU, particularly those that grew up around here and went to Virginia State, Virginia Union, Norfolk State, you know, all the schools in the Carolinas and down in the 757, and particularly I know a bunch of people that went to Howard. Man, I commend y'all. I love y'all. When I see y'all big up y'all universities and colleges, man, it gives me a sense of pride to know that our black people out there doing it and have that sense of pride that we did it in an environment where it was just us. So that's what it's all about. Particularly, like, you know, I have probably like a mentor that she went to Spelman, and just to see how involved she still is in that school, it's just something that I don't have that closeness with my university, and I think it's because I didn't have the type of experience that you get at an HBCU. So really,
you were also a student athlete, which I think is a very different experience.
But I think it's just something about going to an HBCU. I think
we as Beyonce says, so much damn swag.
You can't replicate it, man. So again, big up to all those people, and thank y'all for doing what you did, because you know, you kept the lights on at those schools, and hopefully we'll see with this we'll see more people choosing to go to HBCU and choosing to give back, because that's how you actually sustain those schools. So big up to Beyonce and Beychella for doing that and bringing the limelight to it, and then Robert Smith again. Thank you for being a billionaire and being, you know, doing it Big Willie style and giving up all the money. That's big time. So kudos to that. So what else we got?
I think it was good that we started on a positive note, because it's about to go kind of downhill from here.
All right.
Next topic is abortion.
Yeah.
And men wanting to decide what women do with their bodies, and particularly white men deciding what women should do with their bodies. So most recently, Alabama basically has like a banned abortion. So doctors who perform abortions can receive, I think, up to 100 years in prison for it.
Guys, you see how I'm talking, like I'm just sitting quiet? That's how most people should be, most men should be when we talk about abortion. Georgia
recently passed a very, very restrictive abortion law. Basically, the direction is to repeal Roe v. Wade, which basically legalizes abortion, because people just feel like
it's very strategic. It's, you know, that they have the justice. The Supreme Court is actually swaying more conservative now. Trump is in the White House, and so this is the time that if you're going to do it and try to overturn Roe versus Wade, you need a law that will actually go up through the system and actually make its way to the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, is that they built a law that's way too restrictive. I mean, the Alabama law doesn't even give for rape and incest, you still have to have the baby.
And you know, activists, organizers, they're trying to, because that, I mean, that is just excessive. Basically, if you are a survivor of rape or incest, you are being told, well, you know, this bad thing happened to you, but you know, your baby is a blessing and a gift. So have this baby, and you have options, aka adoption. But there is a 9-month period where you are still carrying this human being in your body. That aside, my stance is pretty clear. Like, stay out of my vagina.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel. And I mean, on a serious note, like, the impact that this has on low-income, working-class communities of color who already struggle to access birth control and kind of family planning resources, etc. I mean, it's crazy to me, and especially because this decision is coming down by mostly white men, like, who don't have to raise kids, who aren't signing up to, you know, have foster kids in their families. So I just don't, I'm really not understanding in their, I mean, I get what they're, you know, religious, all these things, why they feel like they are equipped to tell women what to do with our bodies.
And let's be clear, like, the whole thing about, you know, saving a life and this, that, and the other. Okay, if you have that, then you need to have that same energy when the baby's born. Because let's look at Alabama. Always near the bottom, if not the last, when it comes to education. So what do y'all do not care? Once the baby's born, you don't care, right? And so this whole thing around, you don't want to get rid of the life. Y'all don't care about the life once it's here.
And I mean, outside of the context of like birth, I saw this quote of like, oh, y'all want to care about babies being born, but you don't care about, you weren't caring when black people were getting lynched.
Right.
That's a life.
Right.
So I mean, how do we pick and choose whose life we value?
And
you know?
Again, myself, I could never see if you know, I'm married now, but if I get a woman pregnant, I could never see myself saying, I want you to get an abortion. Or if she came to me and says, I want to keep it, by all means, please keep it.
That's a woman's choice.
That's right. But it's her choice. I don't have a right to say, you know, I might say I want to keep it, and if she decides she doesn't want to carry a child in her body for 9 months, that's her body. I can't go in and make her do anything. So for men to feel like they can do that, and even if it's your religion, that's your religion. So what goes on in your bedroom, in your house, is what goes on in your house. You can't tell me what to do in my house.
You got
I just think that we so often we pick and choose when we want to say it's too much government in certain things, but then when it comes to this, yes, the government needs to come in and tell us that you must have a baby. It's just I just
and also I feel like the undertone of that is certainly, I mean, it's so deep, but I think that people assume, like, especially because when you think of just the caricature of like the welfare mom, who is typically like a black woman out here having kids, and it's just like, I think people assume that when a woman gets pregnant, you know, and it's not planned, that it is just like, oh, I'm just go to the clinic to get an abortion. That is never an easy. I've never had, but that's never like I don't think that is an easy decision to make. So it's not just like people out here willy-nilly like, oh, I'm getting pregnant and then I'll just go get rid of the child. It's like, that is a decision that is thought through. So I feel like some people have the like misconception that people are misusing abortion as a form of birth control, and I just think that is like, that's just way off from the reality of that. So I guess we'll see, but I'm trying to remain optimistic.
It just bothers me to no end that people think that they can, that their religious ideas of when life starts and so forth, they can push that on somebody else. We do the same thing when we talk about Sharia law with Muslims. We get so upset when we say they're trying to push Sharia law in the United States, or when other countries have it. Oh, they're so backwards and looking down upon women. How can we dare talk about how they treat women in Saudi Arabia and so forth when we talking about we can say when and where when a woman and how she must carry a child? It's hypocrisy to me. So as a man, I don't want to have to speak about this. I don't want to be the person saying yay or nay. It's a woman's decision. That's how it should be. And for men, a bunch of white men to get together and say this is how it should be, it's just, man, wow, we're talking about privilege.
Yeah.
That's what it's, that's privilege, man. That is strictly privilege right there.